I've never posted anything like this before, and honestly, I don't even know if this belongs here. I've been sitting on this story for years, and every December it crawls back into my head whether I want it to or not. I'm not claiming this was supernatural. I don't know what it was, but I know what I saw, and I know how it made me feel. I'm writing this now because Christmas is coming again, and I've started noticing small things that feel familiar. This happened about 6 years ago, when I was living alone in a small cul-de-sac in upstate New York. The kind of neighborhood where people wave when they drive by, where nothing ever really changes. Most of the houses were owned by older couples or families who had been there for decades. It was quiet, safe, predictable. That year, I decided not to travel for the holidays. My parents lived several states away, and work had been brutal. I just wanted one calm Christmas to myself. I decorated lightly. Tree, lights in the window, a wreath on the door. Nothing fancy. December 23rd fell on a Saturday that year. I remember because I spent most of the day doing nothing productive. Snow had been falling on and off since the morning. The kind that makes everything look soft and muted. By evening, the street was completely still. No cars, no footsteps, just that heavy winter quiet. Around 8:40 p.m., my doorbell rang. I remember the exact time because I glanced at the clock without thinking. It didn't feel late, but it was already dark out. I didn't hesitate to answer. That's important. I didn't feel scared. I wasn't cautious. Door-to-door caroling had been a thing in this neighborhood for as long as I'd lived there. A church group usually came through every year. When I opened the door, 4 people stood on my porch. 2 men, 2 women. They were dressed neatly, winter coats, scarves, gloves. Each of them held a small hymn book. Everything about them looked right, normal, almost comforting. They smiled at the same time. And then I noticed their eyes. None of them blinked. I don't mean they blinked less than usual. I mean they didn't blink at all. Not once. Even as snowflakes landed on their eyelashes. Even as the cold air stung their faces. Before I could say anything, they started singing. Silent Night. Perfect harmony. Soft, controlled, beautiful even. Their voices blended together in a way that felt practiced, almost rehearsed to perfection. I stood there, holding the door open, smiling politely, like you do in awkward situations. I waited for that warm, nostalgic feeling people always talk about with Christmas carols. It never came. Instead, I felt this creeping pressure in my chest, like I was being evaluated, measured. They didn't look at each other while they sang. They looked at me, the entire time. When the song ended, they didn't clap or laugh or wish me a Merry Christmas like normal people do. They just stood there, still smiling, still staring. I finally said something like, "Thank you, that was nice," and started to close the door. That's when one of the men took a small step forward. "You didn't sing with us," he said. His voice didn't match his face. It was flat, empty, like he was reading a line he'd memorized. I laughed nervously and told him I didn't know the words very well. All 4 of them smiled wider. One of the women tilted her head slightly and said, "That's okay. You'll know them tomorrow." Tomorrow. Before I could respond, they turned in unison and walked down my driveway. Their steps were perfectly synchronized, crunching the snow at the same time. I closed the door and locked it without thinking. I told myself I was overreacting, that they were just strange, maybe from a different church, maybe socially awkward. Still, I checked the doorbell camera before bed. The footage showed them arriving exactly when I remembered. They walked up to the porch. They stood there. They sang. Then the video skipped. Not froze, not cut out. Skipped. 1 second they were standing on my porch. The next, the porch was empty. No footage of them leaving. No movement down the driveway. I checked every angle, every timestamp. Nothing. I barely slept that night. On Christmas Eve, I kept myself busy all day. Music on, TV loud, lights on in every room. I kept telling myself that if they were coming back, I'd hear them. At exactly 8:40 p.m., my power flickered. Just once. Then everything went dark. I stood in the living room, listening to the hum of silence, my heart pounding. That's when I heard singing. Not from outside, from inside my house. It was faint at first, like it was coming through the walls, like someone singing from another room. Silent night, holy night. I followed the sound without thinking, every step making my skin crawl. It led me toward the hallway, toward my bedroom. The door was open. I know it was closed earlier. I know that for a fact. The singing stopped the moment I reached the doorway. I flipped the light on. The room was empty, but on my bed, laid out neatly, were 4 hymn books. Identical to the ones they were holding. I grabbed my phone and ran out of the house barefoot, locking the door behind me. I sat in my car and called the police, trying not to sound hysterical. They arrived 20 minutes later. They found nothing. No signs of forced entry. No footprints around the house except my own. The books were gone by the time they checked my bedroom. One of the officers suggested I might have been overtired or stressed. Another asked if I'd been drinking. They left after telling me to get some rest. I didn't go back inside that night. I drove to a friend's place and stayed there until morning. I sold the house the following spring. I thought that would be the end of it. Last night, I was walking home from work. It was snowing for the first time this season. As I passed a small church a few blocks away, I heard singing. Silent night. 4 voices. Perfect harmony. I didn't turn around. I kept walking. But I could feel it. They were smiling again, and this time I knew all the words. I don't know when the stocking first appeared. That's the part that bothers me the most. My wife and I have tried to pinpoint it, gone through photos, old messages, even receipts from that December. But there's no clear moment where we can say, this is when it started. It's just there, like it always belonged. We've been married for 8 years now. No kids. Not by choice exactly, just the way life worked out. Holidays were always simple for us. Calm, predictable. We liked it that way. We moved into our current house in late November, just before Christmas. Small place in a quiet Indiana neighborhood. Brick exterior, 1 story. The kind of house that feels solid and unremarkable in the best way. Our first Christmas there was modest. A small tree in the living room, lights along the windows, 4 stockings hung over the fireplace. Mine, hers, and 2 decorative ones we bought because the space looked empty without them. On Christmas morning, as we were making coffee, my wife frowned at the fireplace. "Did you hang another one?" she asked. I looked over. There were 5 stockings. The new one was red, hand-knit, slightly longer than the others. It hung perfectly centered between ours. I assumed she was messing with me. She assumed I was messing with her. We laughed it off. We had just moved in. Maybe it came with the house. Maybe one of our parents dropped it off when we weren't home. We didn't open it. It was empty anyway. The second year it happened again. Same stocking, same position, same emptiness. This time, we asked our families directly. Everyone denied it. Some joked that we had a Christmas ghost. We laughed along. But that night, my wife took the stocking down and put it in the hall closet. On Christmas morning, it was back, hanging between ours. We didn't laugh that time. We checked the doors, the windows. Nothing was disturbed. No signs of entry. The house alarm had never gone off. My wife suggested maybe one of us was doing it unconsciously. Sleepwalking. Forgetting. I wanted to believe that. By the third year, we stopped touching it entirely. It became an unspoken rule. We decorated around it, avoided looking at it too closely. When guests came over, no one ever mentioned it. And we stopped mentioning it to each other. Last Christmas, something changed. I woke up early before my wife and went into the living room to start the coffee. The tree lights were still on, glowing softly in the dark. That's when I noticed the stocking looked full, not bulging, just heavier, stretched slightly at the bottom. I stood there for a long time before touching it. Inside was a folded piece of paper. No gift, no candy, just paper. I unfolded it carefully. It was a list, handwritten, neat, precise, times, dates, observations, things like front door unlocked, 11:32 p.m., kitchen light left on overnight, bedroom curtains open, 2:04 a.m., garage door opened but not closed, 6:17 p.m. My hands started shaking when I realized something. All of it was accurate. At the bottom of the page, written slightly darker than the rest, was one final line. Still watching. Still waiting. I didn't tell my wife right away. I don't know why. Maybe I was trying to protect her. Maybe I was afraid she'd confirm what I already knew. I burned the paper in the sink. Then, without saying a word, I took the stocking down and threw it into the fireplace. I lit it and watched it curl and blacken, the smell of burning yarn filling the room. My wife watched from the doorway. She didn't ask questions. That night, we double-checked every lock, set the alarm, closed every curtain. We went to bed early, exhausted. Sometime after midnight, I woke up to my wife whispering my name. She sounded terrified. I opened my eyes. The bedroom door was open, and hanging from the doorknob was the stocking. Perfectly intact. Red, clean, unburned. Inside something shifted. We didn't scream, we didn't move, we just stared. Slowly, the stocking sagged as if whatever was inside settled. Then we heard a sound from the living room. Footsteps, soft, bare, moving carefully across the floor, stopping beneath our bedroom door. A voice whispered from the other side. I didn't say you could throw it away. We called the police. They searched the house, the attic, the crawl space, the yard. Found nothing. No forced entry. No footprints in the frost outside. They suggested a prank, a stalker, stress. One officer quietly asked if we'd considered moving. We sold the house 2 months later. The stocking stayed behind. Or at least we thought it did. Last night, we unpacked our Christmas decorations in our new apartment. I reached into the box and froze. At the bottom, folded neatly, was a red hand-knit stocking. Empty, for now.